everybody, my name is Lubo and we're here today to compare three MClimate air quality devices. What are the differences? What are the similarities? We're gonna uncover in this video. But first, what is CO2? CO2, or carbon dioxide, is a molecule that exists everywhere in the air around us. But in closed spaces, humans, as we breathe out more CO2. So it's a great indicator of how fresh the air inside a room is. Essentially, it's very important because in enclosed spaces where there are many people, if levels of CO2 are high, then you might get tired, you might experience some fatigue, or you might get a headache even. So it's really important to breathe in fresh air. But here we have the three devices that measure the CO2 levels and can tell you if the air inside a room is well ventilated or maybe is over ventilated in some cases. And I'm going to begin with the similarities between all those three devices. First, they measure CO2 levels from an NDIR sensor, which measures the real CO2 content in the air. Second, all of them measure temperature and humidity as well as CO2. All of them are LoRaWAN devices, and all of them have firmware updates over the air, or FWOTA. And now to the differences. The CO2 Sensor Notifier is the simplest looking from all of them. It is without a display, and it doesn't really show the exact CO2 levels. It is powered by two AA batteries, and it also has a check button which you can click to see what is the current CO2 level measured by it. Then we have the CO2 display. It is a bigger version of this one, but it also features 2.9-inch e-ink fast refresh display. It has a solar panel, which means you don't need batteries, but it's really important that you have the option to add batteries on the back. And third, which is also important, is the PIR, or movement sensor, that this device features. On the back, it has a stainless steel bracket, which can be used to be attached to a wall using screws and dowels or with double-sided tape. And on the bottom, it has a secure screw, which can be removed if you want to replace the battery or if you want to remove the sensor. And here we have the last device, which is the CO2 Display Lite. It is the more budget-friendly option compared to the CO2 display, but one key difference is that it doesn't have a movement sensor or peer sensor. Another difference is that it also doesn't have the option to add batteries, so it's meant for places which are well lit. And it's important to mention that those two devices, the solar panel inside of them, is meant for, it's actually tuned for indoor lights, not so much outdoor lights. So if you have an office space, a school, you will be getting enough light. But if you want to install this somewhere else where it's darker, I would advise you on using the CO2 Sensor Notifier, because it has the option for batteries on the inside, as you can see here. Now, another similarity between those two devices is that they also have a check button. So I can click the check button and see what are the current levels of CO2 inside this room right now. And the CO2 Display Lite, it also has a view button. So you can cycle through the readings of CO2, temperature, humidity, and light levels inside the room. It is important to mention that those two devices with the solar panels also register the amount of light that is inside the room. So it might be another benefit for your application. All three devices are super easy to install. You can use double-sided tape or screws and dowels on each one of them to fit them on a wall or any surface. And while those two here have a display which shows if they're connected to the LoRaWAN network, this one shows it by the animation of the light. So if it blinks, it means that it's not connected to a LoRaWAN network, but if it's solid, it means that it's connected. So from an installer point of view, you just need a good place away from windows to install those devices. You might need some double-sided tape, and you need to know how we show if it has successfully connected to a LoRaWAN network. And speaking of LoRaWAN, it goes without mentioning that all three devices have an open protocol. You can integrate them into whatever IoT system you wish, and we have a very well documented protocol on what data, how often they transmit, etc. All three devices transmit the data by default on 10 minutes, but you can change it. If you need data more often, it's really easy to set a different, as we call it, a keep alive interval. Or if you need data, let's say every 1 hour, again, super easy to do it. The CO₂ Sensor Notifier is very configurable when it comes to the way it notifies about the different CO₂ levels. You can choose to activate a buzzer or not. By default, it comes with a deactivated buzzer. And those here, they lack a buzzer, but they have the displays where you can also see the history of the CO₂ indoors. All three devices are with open protocol, which means that we give you the communication protocol over LoRaWAN, and you can integrate them into whatever system you wish. It might be an IoT platform, it might be the BMS system of the building. But if you want to get started, we have our own software, which you don't have to use, but if you want to get started quickly, it's easy to see the data there, and it's called the MClimate Enterprise. You can see the historical data, you can see the current data, you can manage the settings, and much more. While those three might be just sensors, they have huge potential to help you save on your energy bills. At MClimate, we see hundreds of buildings, and we see a lot that are underventilated, and there you can see very high levels of CO₂. People usually have to open windows to refreshen the air inside. But we also see a lot of buildings that are over-ventilated, which means they are ventilating rooms that have no occupants. This means that the CO₂ level is really close to the outdoor CO₂ level. So those buildings are essentially wasting money on ventilating spaces that don't need to be ventilated. There is this term called demand-driven ventilation. And usually inside buildings, it is a schedule-based ventilation. So they set from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock, run the ventilation. The studies show that you can save 5 to 15% on your energy cost for ventilation if you do demand-driven ventilation, which means you take those readings from the CO₂ sensors, feed them inside the BMS, and tell the BMS to only ventilate rooms if the CO₂ level gets above a threshold, let's say 1000 ppm. That's it from me for today. If you want to learn more about our devices or the services we offer, make sure you visit our website or get in touch with us. Thank you.